I'm going to show you how to swap strings on a bow that's already set up, so you don't have to completely go through the whole tuning process again. This method will get you pretty close to where you were without having to spend a lot of time. If your bow is already set up and tuned the way you like it, you should go ahead and shoot your bow through paper or shoot bare shafts and make a note of how they're hitting. It doesn't need to be perfect, it's however you had it tuned so your broadheads were flying properly. And then once we put the new strings on, we're going to shoot it through paper or shoot our broadheads and see that it's impacting the same. Okay, so we're going to put the bow in the press but without tension on it. And then take our calipers and measure from the top of the soft knock to the middle of where you have your peep tied. And then take that measurement and either lock it into place or you can write it down. And then I like to take a T-square with my rest in the down position. I'm going to make a mark at the bottom of the soft knock. So I'm going to know when I put my new string on, that's where I'm going to be tying my soft knock on. You don't even need to release the tension on your draw cord. Just make a mark on your T-square. The bow's in the press, it's not under tension. We are going to measure axle to axle before we take the strings off. Going to burn an inch, come back here. Okay, so I'm getting 31, burn an inch, so 30 inches exactly on the dot. So when we put our new strings in and shoot them a couple times, that's where we're going to want our axle to axle to be. We've got the location for our peep marked, and we also have the precise location for our knocking point. So we're ready to move on to swapping the strings out. So we've got our new string on and taking the tension off, and we're going to measure axle to axle again. And we are spot on at 30 inches. So that is always good. You know, sometimes strings get mixed up. You can get the wrong string for the wrong bow. Somebody hands you the wrong pack or something. And you can be inches off at axle to axle, and that really messes things up. So always just kind of check that before you go forward. We're going to go ahead and swap our cables out. Some bows, they have a different top and bottom cable. Like they'll be the same length, but they'll have different location or lengths for the serving. So just check and see if you have a bow that needs, you know, cable A and cable B, or if both of the cables are exactly the same. On this bow, these cables are the same, so I don't have to check which one's going to be top and which one's going to be bottom. Before you swap cables, you might want to look and check which cable goes where and where it crosses over and which side of the roller it goes through. So on this bow, I can make a little diagram and say my top cable is going to come on the outside of the cross, and it's going to go on the closest side to me through the roller. And then the bottom cable here is going to be on the inside and then go on the top for the roller. So that way, when I put my cables back on, I know they're also in the same location. We have one cable on, now we're ready to install the other. So setting our T-square right against the rest in the down position, we're going to line that up, and that's going to be the mark for where I put my knocking point and tie in right above that mark there. Sometimes I make one a little bit longer because my bottom knocking point is going to be a little bit longer than the top since I tie around a couple more times. So right where we marked, we're going to snug that up, go around, and now we're going to tie a box knot at the top, or some kind of knot, I don't know. Knots have names. I have a book on knots. Okay. Now here, we're going to take one of our arrows. I always tie these in the same way, so I'm going to put my knock on there and measure where I want that using a 1/16 below my knock. Tie it in. And then we tie the bottom knocking point one more extra tie than the top because the D-loop is pulling against the bottom of your knocking points, not the top. The top is just to keep your arrow in place. The bottom is what is taking the brunt of the force because we're not knocking exactly center of the string. We're a little bit above center. So that makes all the force from drawing back with the D-loop pull upwards. It's important to get these good and tight. Now that we have that done, we'll finish our knot off here. Okay, we're ready for our D-loop. I always shoot the same length D-loop, no matter what bow. I guess because the distance to my face from my anchor point is the same. So I know exactly what length D-loop to use. And I use the loop wedge tool here, exactly the D-loop length that I want, which I think measures out to 1.16". Some people think it matters which way the knot is on the D-loop, whether the top one is facing you or facing away. It doesn't matter. You can tie it with the top knot facing you and the bottom away, or the other way around. I have done lots of studies. Point of impact is the same. The only important thing is that the knot on the top and the bottom are in opposite directions. So I usually do most of my bows the same, and I'm going to have the top one with the burnt end facing me, and then go around, and for the bottom one I'm going to have it facing opposite. Like I said, I have literally set a bow up and then just in troubleshooting different things and checking scenarios out, taken the whole D-loop off, put the D-loop on opposite direction, went out, shot it, 50 yards all in the same hole. No difference. All right, I'm not going to cinch this in super tight since we're not going to tie our peep in yet, but I'm going to get that decently tight because we wouldn't want that to slip. So that is ready to go. And next we are going to go shoot through paper before we even tie a peep in, because I want to get the strings settled first. I'm going to blank bail a few times just to let the strings get in position before I install a peep. Okay, let's go ahead and shoot through paper. It's time to shoot through paper. I've got my paper tuner here, and I have my previous hole for before I swap the strings, so I'll know if my tune has changed a lot or a little bit. I'm going to be standing at 7 yards away because I think that's pretty much the optimal distance for shooting through paper. Okay, there is my paper tuner. I'm going to shoot through a few times. No, I've never hit in the freezer. That's where all my venison is. This is 7 yards. I'll shoot through paper a couple times. That one was a little bit tail high as compared to before. Okay, let's go see where that hit. Okay, so this is my paper tear before I swap my strings out. And you can see it's just ever so slightly tail high. And these are the two shots I made. First shot, second shot. Left and right is the same, so that looks really good tune-wise. I'm getting an ever so slightly higher tail high tear with my new strings. But since left and right is really not changed, I'm going to go ahead and tie in my peep because that is going to take a little bit of slack out of the string, having that peep in there before I make any adjustments to like rest height. Okay, so before we have tension on the bow, remember we took our calipers and marked them. So I'm going to grab a Sharpie, and from the soft knock up, I'm going to measure the middle of where that peep should be in the string. So this is why I did not cinch the D-loop down tight when I started, because putting the peep in the string is going to change things. So now I can just twist my D-loop around the string to match with the peep, because the peep is sitting straight in the bow now. And I've measured again with my calipers now that the peep is in the string, and the center of the peep is lining up with my caliper mark. So I'm going to go ahead and tie this in. So I tie my target peeps in different than my hunting peeps. So this is how I'm going to tie my hunting peep in. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to take all the tension out. Looks good. And then just rotate my D-loop into the final position to match my peep. And now I'm going to cinch that up. Okay. So I guess just to measure, I have this black mark on my loop wedge. So I don't know what that measured is. I think that's 1 1/16. Like, well, what's half of an eighth? That's a 16th. So 1 1/16 is what my D-loop is always at. All right. So now we can go shoot again and see what the paper tear looks like. Oh, peep looks really good. Okay. That peep was great, no rotation. This is the arrow I just shot. This is the original before we changed out strings. You can see it's just like a pinky width, tail high. And this was before we tied the Nocking. You can see it's pretty tail high. And then here, this is not my final shot with the new strings on. And this is just like a pinky width, tail high. So I'm gonna go ahead and say that we tuned really well with the new strings to match our previous paper tear. Let's go shoot broadheads. All right, now let's shoot our field point. Let's go check it out. All right, we have broadhead and field point hitting our orange tack. I'm gonna say we successfully put new strings on and save the tune of our bow by being mindful. Taking those measurements and being careful about putting our new strings on, we were able to save the tune of our bow and not have to go through the whole process of re-sighting everything in and retuning. So you can save yourself a little time just by using some math. Let me know what you thought about this video and if there's anything else that you'd like to see. Take care and happy hunting.